Yvonne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here. So grateful to know you.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here, Yvonne. I am thrilled to share you with everyone. And I would love for you, I'd love to start business in the front. So tell us about you and LCA Travel and what you offer.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am a travel and event production consultant, and so LCA is my passion, my passion, my hobby, my life's work of creating magical experiences for both individuals and groups, primarily groups, because I think it's better together, a little bit more fun, and really serving very specifically women, families, solo travelers, and those who are interested in infusing their experiences with cannabis. Whether they are interested in inhalation, drinkables, topicals, there's so many cool ways that you can enhance experience and travel, and have a really deep, meaningful, intentional experience in your travels through the use of cannabis. So that's my passion in life.
Oh, I love that so much. And you also work for the Cannabis Tourism Association?
Yes, thank you. I am the executive director of a nonprofit organization called the Cannabis Travel Association International. We started out California based, and earlier this year, we actually transitioned to an international organization, which has been super fun. We learned through COVID and, having to, pivot to virtual events. There's this entire worldwide community of both travel and hospitality professionals, as well as cannabis professionals that are wanting to connect and do some really cool things in the space. And it's really such a unique and interesting way to kind of move the envelope forward towards destigmatization or normalization is, intertwining it with mainstream travel. So that's really what the association does through education, advocacy, and networking.
I love that. And I love that you are also like a person who can just roll up and create concierge travel experiences for people who also is connected to this incredible network. So someone could potentially just come to you with like, my dreams of travel are maybe this type of weather, this type of amenities, and this type of cannabis use. And you can be like, maybe Jamaica, maybe,
Exactly.
I don't know if Iceland is legal yet, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just so cool that you're like there in the cutting edge, like ready to understand all the experiences that are possible. Because the point of hiring a professional is to create more possibilities. There's a limit to how much a regular person's going to know. And the laws are changing literally every day. Today, 7-1, like a bunch of new states are now like implementing new things. So it's like, it's wild.
Exactly. Exactly. And consumption is such a huge, concern for people. Where can I consume legally in this state? And so having safe consumption spaces is a huge part of what we're advocating for, for 2021 and 2022 through the association. But no, I love to, create those experiences for people. And I live them myself. I road test everything. That's where my tips and my tricks come from, is because I put myself out there. And I share my adventures on Instagram so that hopefully I can empower other people to, take that leap and do something that they've always wanted to do and maybe never had a buddy to do it with.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so how do people best get in touch with you?
They can find me on Instagram. I'm at Yvonne, YVONNE _ LCA Travel. And cute little story, LCA actually stands for my daughter's names, Lily, Charlotte, and Annika. So that's where that came from, is because I want to build this business, as a vehicle for their dream fulfillment.
I love that. It all starts with the dream. It really does. I love you so much. I'm so excited to keep talking to you. Okay, so we've got business in the front, and now we're just going to really dig in and get to know Yvonne. Yvonne, tell me about how you got into travel and like a little bit about like your growing up experience and how you ended up. You're in San Diego now, right? San Diego?
I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
And sometimes the Southern California is like mixed up for me, and I'm like, oh, maybe it's Orange County, but I'm pretty sure it's San Diego. So tell me like a little bit about the arc of your life leading up to how you got into travel and how you love it.
Well, I never really connected the dots until you just asked me that question. But I actually grew up a Navy brat. And so now I'm like having this wild epiphany, like live with you. I'm like, oh, so maybe that's where I get it from. But I grew up moving a lot as a kid. And we had the opportunity to live in some of the most beautiful, picturesque places. I lived in Rhode Island. I lived in Monterey. I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, San Antonio. And in high school, I went to 3 different high schools. So I went to a different high school for freshman year, moved the middle of my freshman year to a different school where I finished my freshman year, did sophomore year. And then by the time I got to my 3rd school for my junior year, I said, you know what, this just doesn't work for me anymore. And so because I had always gone to summer school, I had all these extra credits. And so I graduated from high school a year early. I got into the University of Southern California, and I went there and I just tapped out. Like I just, I felt like maybe I'd gone too young. So I was very fortunate in that my family were the founders and still are the founders of the National Black Chamber of Commerce in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Yeah, I was very, very fortunate. And so in my sabbatical from college, I actually moved to Washington, D.C. as a young lady all by myself. And I worked for my aunt and uncle, putting on their annual convention. And so through working with them, I got to travel. And that was when I really started working large scale events and, booking business travel. And I loved it. I loved the stress of the moment. I loved, orchestrating behind the scenes. It felt right. And so from there, I knew that was what I wanted to do. And I went from there into the beauty industry. I attempted a couple times, full disclosure, I did go back to USC eventually. Again, it just was never the right fit. If there's one thing that I would want to share is that just because something looks great doesn't mean it's the right rate for you. Yep. So, just because I got into USC and I had a scholarship to USC, I never felt at home there. It was not the right college for me. And I think that had I, really followed my heart and, went to a place that felt more like me, I would have, potentially fulfilled, that dream of graduating from college. But instead I kept trying to force myself to be something in a place where I never felt good. So that didn't work, but I found myself in the beauty industry where I spent 20 amazing years with a great boutique brand called Euphoria International. And my mentor there, Beth Bewley, she brought me in under her wing, and she saw all this amazing experience that I brought to the table at the age of 21, having, done all of these things already in my professional career. And she said, hey, if you, come start here with me, help me, take this role, which was a very entry-level role, I'll grow you. I promise to grow you. And she honored that promise for 20 years. And so through, my journey with that company, I worked in product development, marketing, customer service, but again, found myself back to events and travel. And so, which brings me to where we are today. I was booking a ton of corporate travel. And I was at a point in my life where, that was a lot of fun. I loved what I was doing. I still love the brand and the company, but I felt like I needed something for me. And I just felt like I was lost. And so I did a Google search for women's retreats in Joshua Tree. I just felt called to Joshua Tree. I wanted to find like-minded women. And I never in imagined years that I would come across a group of women who were using cannabis to glow up, to be their best selves intentionally, and they were doing it, while doing yoga and while eating great food and movement classes. And I couldn't believe that something like this existed. Like, it blew my mind. And I felt like these were my people and I needed to go. And so my first Glowing Goddess Getaway at the time, it was the Glowing Goddess Getaway. It was in the middle of nowhere, and you had to leave your car parked at this liquor store, and then they would shuttle you to the property that was at an unknown address. And I didn't know if I was going to have cell phone reception, but I went as a volunteer, and it was amazing. And I, didn't talk a whole lot that weekend, but I connected with some amazing women, and I felt inspired in a way that I hadn't felt in a very long time. And so I kept going back. I went back again and again and again, and I met the instructors, the goddess guides, such as yourself. I listened to the women in cannabis panels, and every time I went home, I challenged myself to take a closer look at my life and to make a change. And so slowly I started eliminating the things that were no longer serving me, which is how I came to, just throw myself into building my own company, transitioning into fully doing everything cannabis tourism. And personally, I feel like I'm a better mom. And, I became a single mom during that time frame, not good, not bad, just what it was, and I think that the clarity and the beauty of the journey with the Glowing Goddess Getaway is what brought me to where I'm at today, where I feel like I'm finally living an authentic life.
Finally living an authentic life. I think that's the best way I've heard people or any goddess describe like the results of the Glowing Goddess Getaway. I really do think it like introduces you to your highest form of self, because you're around a lot of other women who are like also glowing up to their highest form of self. And it's a pretty incredible experience to just see. I mean, sometimes your life has to fall apart to fall together, and it is what it is. And that's what happens. But oh my gosh, I'm so glad to hear that like that was your journey to finding that authentic self. And what a portentous Google search to just like come to mind and look for it. And Joshua Tree is an energy vortex. Do you know that?
Mm-hmm, exactly. That's why I felt called.
Yeah.
I actually did too during that time. I was soul searching. And so I actually did 2 trips to Joshua Tree, one with a couple of girlfriends, and then the solo trip where I went to the getaway. And that's how I started. I think that's how I really started focusing on, the solo travel, is because I didn't have someone who was available or interested in doing the same things I wanted to do should not keep me from doing them.
Exactly. You got to sometimes you got to show up alone to find your friends who are going to go do that thing with you, because they're already there. They're already going.
Yes. And I did. I found my sister. My Canna sisterhood. Yeah. I found my like-minded, amazing, inspiring, authentic, willing to grow and help me shape and change. I found those people.
Yes. And I want to just say full same. My first experience with the Glowing Goddess Getaway was at after yours. I was in Coachella. And there was like a parking lot you parked at, a random shuttle with someone I didn't know picking me up. I was sight unseen. I was like, I do not like, I was true faith to leap into it. And honestly, like that was really uncomfortable, but I'm glad I felt the discomfort and kept going so that I could then be welcomed into the multi-generational sisterhood I had truly been craving, and did not know where I was going to find it. Was very surprised to find it surrounded in a cloud of cannabis smoke. Grateful and glad. But I did find it that way. Like I just never thought cannabis would be part of the whole package for me. And it truly is just such an incredible spiritual and medicinal tool that I use to truly bring my best self to the world. And were you an active cannabis user before you found what is now the Glowing Goddess Getaway?
You know, I actually, I consumed, you know, recreationally, you know, when I was younger. And when I got to about my mid-20s, I got weird and paranoid. And so I stopped. And I discovered it as a patient. I came back in my mid-30s as a patient. And so I felt very in the closet because I did not feel like my community would accept, you know, my cannabis use, despite the fact that it helped me replace 5 different pharmaceuticals and it was helping me live a better life. I you know, was the booster dance mom, and I participated in the PTA at school, and I had this corporate career, and I felt a shame. You know, I hid in my garage. You know, it was not something that I talked about. I kept it very hush hush. And it was, again, you know, I just saw so many wonderful, courageous, you know, cannabis moms who were sharing their own experiences and showing me a different side of it. And I could see the difference it made in their relationships with their children when they were honest. Because I felt like I was being so inauthentic, and I hated lying to my kids.
Yeah.
And so it was after my very first Glowing Goddess Getaway, I came home and I actually came out of the closet to my children. And then very slowly, it took me a couple years to fully come out of the cannabis closet. But I feel very solid and proud of who I am and the effect that cannabis has in my life. And I'm proud to be a mother who discusses, you know, why she chooses to use cannabis intentionally with her children.
How did you come out to them, and how old were they at that time?
Oh, that's a great question. My children were 12, 10, and 5, I think, when I came out to them. And I don't know why I call it coming out, because it was more of a don't ask, don't tell situation, because I would spend a lot of time in my garage doing laundry, you know, and there was always a funny smell, and it always smelled like air freshener. And I spent way too much time out there for them to really, like, I mean, at some point they kind of clued in, and they knew not to go in the garage when mom was doing laundry. But to remove that unspoken thing that was lingering in our home, in our relationship, felt amazing. It felt really amazing. And especially when I explained to them, you know, how much of a difference it made from my physical health, let alone my mental health. They got it, and it was a no-brainer. And and now to this day, you know, it's almost it's sometimes they kid me about it. You know, there's always the jokes. You know, like when I wear my cannabis socks to the amusement park, you know, they think it's hilarious. But to this day, I feel like, you know, I appreciate being authentic in front of my children. I think it empowers them to be who they truly are if they see me living my life in the light.
Yeah, absolutely. And shame creates barriers. It interrupts vulnerability and connection. And so when you're able to just kind of stand in your truth, like I mean, my favorite metaphor for like cannabis use as an adult is like, kids know that beer is not soda, and they're not allowed to drink the beer. Beer is for grownups, right? And it's just something that's super like destigmatized, I guess, in the fridge. I want to say normalized for this because they do make it normal, but I think normal is a super toxic way to think about the world, because diversity is a human mandate, and there is so much diversity that there is no normal. But like in American culture, it's very normalized to have beer in the fridge and soda, and kids understand the difference. But then like cannabis is just also an adult thing that's medicinal, that like, you know, kids don't need to be that confused about it. And people, I think, make it a big deal because they grew up with stigma and shame around cannabis use, which was all, I think, you know, we can trace that all back to like the 30s and prohibition and like tamping down the hemp industry so that paper could still be a thing, and like follow the money, really. So anyway, I just think it's awesome. Thank you for sharing about that and sharing about how it's connected you with your daughters more.
Oh, thank you.
It's rad. I also love that for the Glowing Goddess Getaway virtual retreat, you had said that you were going to go be in the garage so that you weren't smoking up the whole house. So it remains your favorite little place to go, be in a cloud of smoke.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh. It's so funny because especially like when we're, when we're all together, if I get cranky, Mom, do you need an edible? Mom, do you need to go to the garage? Like they'll call me out, because if I'm getting a little bit irritable, and then it eases the tension. Everybody has a little giggle. Mm-hmm. Mom takes the advice, mm-hmm. and everything's a little lighter and more fun.
Oh my God, yes. I feel like cannabis sometimes makes our family easier to be around. Because it like smooths the edges. Like there are so many people, I mean, we are attracted to our opposites, and frequently our opposites show up in our lives as the people that we're around and we don't get choices, right? Our kids, we want to love them unconditionally, but frequently they're our opposites and they challenge us. And like cannabis is one of those things that just kind of smooths it out. You can take the ruffled feathers and just kind of distill to like what's most important and focus on connection and harmony, rather than all the stuff. Whenever I get annoyed, I'm like, I think it's time to like chill out and figure out how to take it down a notch.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like what you said about focusing on the connection and harmony, because that's exactly what going medicating before a potentially negative experience. It allows me to go into my heart space and focus on connection and harmony. So I love the way you put that.
Yeah. Speaking of connection and harmony and glowing up, you are now, I don't even remember what your title is, but you're kind of the runner of show at the Getaways now. What do you do at the Getaways? And tell us more about, if there are goddesses out there who are like curious or want to come to a getaway, what can they expect? And give us a little Yvonne take on the Getaways.
Ooh, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. Thank you, Bevin. But I am so fortunate. I'm the travel and event director for the Getaway. So Deidre and Saline, Miss Bliss, and Mama Saline, they take their fairy dust and all their magic and all their love, and they create this magical event. But then they found that when they got there, they couldn't necessarily connect with the goddesses or enjoy the event themselves, because they were, running front of house, running back of house. And it changes the vibe, because they are the vibe setters. They are kind of leading us, into, this amazing space and setting the intentions for the entire weekend. So for them to be free to just connect so deeply and to so truly be in the moment all weekend long is very, very cool. And it changes completely the vibe of the Glowing Goddess Getaway. So I think it's like, their special sauce. There's the passing of the clipboard. And then once we get on site, I kind of help run things in the background. And it's such a joy. It brings me pure joy. Working behind the scenes at the Getaway is not work to me. Like, that is service. It's service, and it's love, and it's joy. Because at any given time, I can go over to the dab bar. I can stop and smoke a joint. It's not even work. It's just because you're so in the vibe. But let me take a step back. So the Glowing Goddess Getaway is a 3-day, 2-night, all-inclusive women's wellness retreat. And what that means is that we provide your camping space. It's a glamping retreat. So depending on the facility, sometimes there's space for actual RVs. Sometimes we're more tent oriented, but we'll provide all that information. But we provide your food, and we accommodate a number of different diets, which is what I love. And we provide all of your entertainment, which is fully optional. And that's my favorite part, is that there is a full schedule of amazing goddess guides like Bevin, who provide amazing intentional workshops. And so each workshop, it's not just about a dance aerobics class. Like, there's so much more to Bevin that, like, you can't even begin to dream about. Or it's not just your typical yoga class. It's not just a painting class. There's so much intention and self-love that goes into, you know, this content. And these goddess guides, you know, were truly chosen because they are there in service as well. So it provides a very safe container for women to, for once, just sit back and relax and enjoy. And when you can just play and relax and do your thing, all of a sudden, you're in a space where you're able to really take a look at yourself, at your life, and you can begin to deconstruct what might be bringing you down, or take a look at what brings you up, you know. And it's a time and space for you to have these conversations with yourself. And then I take that home. I take home all that inspiration, then I come back and I'm a better person when I get home. But so anyway, the Glowing Goddess Getaway, I could just go on and on. It's such a beautiful thing. And I truly believe that one of the most fun experiences is getting to the getaway. And so that's where I love to come in, is with organizing carpools, giving some recommendations for different ways that you can travel to the getaway. We've had ladies take trains, we've had ladies carpool, or if you don't necessarily want to jump in the car with another person that maybe you don't know, you know, we also caravan. I've been in caravan 6 cars deep, full of goddesses, you know, trucking along on the freeway, and it just makes it fun. Everyone stops together, and then there's so many cool things to do along the way. And then there's always water involved at the getaway, whether it's a pool or a lake, and so there's always some kind of floating. Or I know that I find water very, very healing and therapeutic, and so I love that. That's always one of the things that's available to us. What am I forgetting? Oh, your cannabis. Duh.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There are probably ways of smoking or consuming cannabis that you've never thought of that are going to show up at the getaway, or you're going to learn about at the getaway. I'll say that. I learned so much.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. And then talk about glowing up. One of my favorite treats is that we have what we call a dab bar. And so that's where you can come and you can get flower, dabs. And if you've never dabbed before, our very talented dab bar sisters are very knowledgeable and very patient, and will guide you very lovingly through all of these experiences. But there's edibles, there's dabs, there's flower, all kinds of different ways. And so Bevin actually provides an amazing experience when she's at the dab bar, because she guides you through you call it a dream dab, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's just, I mean, it's so funny because my first dab that I ever took was at my first Glowing Goddess Getaway. Alex Moser gave it to me. And it was like, I didn't even really understand what I was doing. I just knew it was a way to consume cannabis. And then I came back, and it's funny because my first getaway experience, I'm grateful for it, because I came in, I taught my class, and then they were just like, enjoy the rest of your experience. So I got to really be a goddess. And like suddenly there's a popsicle in my hand. Suddenly someone's passing me a joint. Suddenly I'm like higher than I can function, right? Like Saturday night for me is usually, at that point, I'm so high, like I can't really do much. But then like I came back the next year when they started the season again, and I just started getting more work. Right. So then like I got, I'd have a second workshop, and then I'd have a shift at the dab bar they put me on. And I was like, oh, okay. So I guess I'm going to learn how this goes. And so I really I had to be taught how to dab tend, but then I was like, oh, well, I also do Reiki, and there's water in this, like, let's just do the thing. And so then it all came to me, it came out, and I still feel like kind of a rookie when I do dab tending. I kind of usually have to I still don't know how to clean a dab rig. I'll say this, like Lori is such a hero. She works the dab bar with me frequently, and like she loves to clean it. And so I'm like, great. I know it has alcohol involved, like very high concentrated alcohol, and friction, shaking. I don't know. Anyway, but I can tend to dab. I can make it happen. I can clean the little thingy. But anyway, yes, it's funny. Like it always just, the Glowing Goddess Getaway levels me up. And every time I do it, even the virtual getaway, this like a couple weekends ago, like I felt myself leveling up just from the sisterhood, the connection, the things we learn, the conversations you have with people who are on a healing path are different than you have with your friends who are like really interested in sports and complacency and not moving forward in their lives. Not that sports is like the only thing you'd be interested in, but you know.
Yeah, no, it is different, you know, and that's, I think, what I found. I was pleasantly surprised at how much I took away from the virtual retreat.
Yeah.
I was super, you know, I carved out space and time, but I wish I would have taken it up another level just to give myself that extra like TLC, you know, really giving myself a true loving experience. Because, and I got a little emotional because I realized, oh my gosh, I haven't been doing this for myself. Like I thought that I had been doing it, but not fully, you know, and especially, you know, in our normal lives, even during the virtual getaway, I just stopped myself from folding laundry because I'm constantly doing multiple things. And the getaway teaches us that it's okay to be mindful and that we don't have to do 10 things at once. And sometimes we probably shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, that's honestly one of the big lessons I've learned even since during the getaway, I guess. So I burned my wrist on some molten porridge. I've made porridge a million times, but right before our tech check on for that virtual getaway, and then 1 week later, I burned my toe. I will never cook with flip flops on ever again, from like a molten banana pancake landing on my foot. And I realized, I was like, I need to be still more mindful than I have been, and really work on just be present in every moment. If I'm with somebody, I'm really with them. If I'm doing a virtual retreat, I'm really doing the retreat, right? Like not getting involved in all of the compulsion of the day to day, because it's hard when your retreats are meant to be away from your day to day life, right? And so like really carving out that time. It's easy when you go, I mean, it's never easy to go away. There's always a lot involved in that, but like it's easier to create that boundary when you're not in your home environment. So when you're doing virtual retreats, it's helpful to be mindful about how you're setting yourself up as much as you can, right? And if you have like, if people out there are interested in the virtual retreats, those are a thing. You can join in. Our next one's in July. It's going to be through the Glowing Goddess Getaway Patreon page. And so everyone who identifies as a goddess or a sister is invited to join us. And it's great because we're going to get to have folks in the sessions with us. So we'll actually get to be together in a virtual way, which I'm very excited about.
I know, me too. I mean, it was, I thought, I mean, I knew that it was going to be great because our content is fantastic. We have such talented goddess guides. But you know, the timing was so fantastic. I didn't feel bogged down by digital overload, because sometimes with these longer events, you know, it just becomes overwhelming. But I love the way that this was structured. And I loved, you know, that we had these nice long breaks in between the sessions. And so then I could really go away. I could do the thing that I needed to do. And then I could come back and really be mindful.
Yeah.
You know, because unfortunately I was still home, you know, it's definitely a different experience. I mean, if I could say one thing, it's that nothing will ever replace the in-person, real life Glowing Goddess Getaway.
Mm-hmm.
To spend, you know, that amount of time away from all of the day-to-day, around other like-minded people who are there to be their best selves. Like there is nothing that is going to push you out of your comfort zone and into the next level of growth like that. Nothing.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about it. So you did an incredibly valuable talk at the virtual getaway about traveling solo and tips for traveling solo, especially with cannabis. And I'm curious if you could give us some of your tips. I would highly encourage you to go watch the Friday afternoon session at a minimum of our virtual getaway on the Glowing Goddess Getaway Facebook page, facebook.com/Glowing Goddess Getaway. And you'll look for the video on June 18th at 2 p.m. Pacific. Okay, Yvonne.
So, solo travel tips. You know, I'll just start at the very beginning. You know, one of the things that I have become really diligent about is just making sure that somebody knows where you are. And that way, if I were to go missing, there's someone who would know where I last was or where I was going to be expected to go. So if I am flying and I have a full itinerary, I make sure that I either my partner has it or my kids have it or someone, someone knows where I'm going to be. When I'm driving, there's a couple of different things that you can do, especially with technology these days. So, dropping a pin every now and again to somebody, like as you go along your route, or if you're using Google Maps, you can share, your trip with somebody. And it's not a big brother thing. It's not because, I don't feel safe on my own. It's just a plan B, because cars break down, and it could not even be like it's not because, anyway, you understand what I'm trying to say.
I mean, listen, maybe you don't get trafficked, but maybe you do. And somebody that knows, I mean, worst case scenario, right? Like, and you might as well solve for that. But I mean, maybe somebody out there is like, oh, I noticed Yvonne's kind of on the side of I-5 for a long time. Maybe there's something wrong. And they try to check in with you. And like, maybe you're in a spot, you know what I mean? Like so many good reasons to have. And if you don't have a partner or kids, you can give it to a sibling or a good friend or whoever.
Yes,
right? Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. The other thing that I really try and pay attention to is just everything that I do with my solo travel tips is to give myself confidence that I can handle any situation that I come into. Not necessarily on my own, but that I have already thought it through and I have a plan. So no matter what I encounter, which is hopefully smooth sailing, but if it's not, I know exactly what I'm going to do to get myself through that situation. So that's really, the mindset that I approach it with. So road trips are so easy and so fun and so economical. And so just knowing that your car is prepared, whether it's, having a roadside assistance, either through your insurance company or sometimes roadside assistance is included automatically on a credit card. So, these are all things that you can check before your trip. Making sure that, as an option, you can always learn how to change your tire and make sure that you have the things to change your tire in your car. A can of Fix-A-Flat is always an option. Just even having a spare tire, ladies. And I know that sounds so simple and basic, but there have been times where I thought my spare tire was good and it wasn't. And I neglected to check before a trip and it really sucked. So definitely, just take all of those things in mind. An easy one to do is keep an eye on your gas tank. There's huge stretches of freeway, or sometimes you take a wrong turn, you're on a back. I mean, because I like to go off the beaten track. So sometimes I'm on a back road and I might not see a gas station for a very long time. So I don't go below half a tank. One, it helps me eliminate the fear that I'm going to run out of gas in a place where I have no cell phone reception. Again, why I like someone to know the route I'm taking. And two, it allows me to control the cost of the gas that I'm putting in my tank.
Yes. This I do. I mean, I do the same thing. I keep it above a half a tank, but I was just thinking about and then you hit a gas station in the middle of nowhere and it's like $6 a gallon. And you're like, I can't fill up on this, but if you're keeping it above a half a tank, you can get a couple gallons. I did that yesterday, actually, because I live where there's long stretches with no gas tanks, gas stations. And I was like, you know what I'll do? I'm going to get a couple gallons of expensive gas because I'm too low. And keep going.
Yeah. Yep. So choices, always having choices. With your lodging, one of the things that you want to think about is if you're camping, just making sure that somebody knows the campground that you're at. Even if you're being spontaneous and just kind of sleeping as you go, oftentimes I'll know that I'm about to go into a place, or it will feel like I'm about to go through a place where I'm not going to have reception. So then before I get into that zone, I will drop a message to whoever is my trip contact. And I'll say, hey, I'm heading into the campground. Here I am. I'm probably going to be out of reception for 12 hours. Don't worry if you don't hear from me. But if you haven't heard from me in 18 hours, then the search party.
Yeah.
So just, having some communication, it just makes me feel better. I on one of my last trips, I actually got in a little bit over my head with a hike that I took on. I thought that I was very well equipped to do this hike, and I actually it was really fucking hard. It was really, really hard. And so I was very grateful that I had told my partner, hey, this is the trailhead that I'm parking at. There's probably not going to be any reception. I'm expecting my timing to take, 40 minutes in, 40 minutes to stay at these amazing, beautiful hot springs, 40 minutes out. I got lost on the trail. It's on a trail that was way above my skill level. And so I was on the trail for 2.5 hours. So by the time I came out, he was pretty worried that at least there's somebody to worry about me, because there was a couple times where I thought, oh my God, if I fall down that hill, because there was no one on the trail with me too. There was no other hikers. So I was like, okay, here's my plan. If I fall down that hill, I have joints, and I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to smoke my joints until somebody smells me. And then eventually somebody will want to come get high with me, and then I will be saved.
That is brilliant. This is a great reason to travel with some joints, or hike with some joints, in case you need to send a literal smoke signal.
Yes, exactly. But things to keep with you: an extra cell phone charger, and your cord. Great thing though is that like my cord quit on me on my last trip, and every gas station has cords now. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So battery backup. I actually want to invest in a solar. So that's something that I recommend for you ladies. I always travel with my own water jugs and a refillable water. When we're watching our costs, it's the little things that add up the most, such as expensive gas, buying water from the gas station. What I prefer to do is I prefer to keep some snackies in the car and spend my budget not on fast food along the way, but on like a really nice, like self-indulgent 3-course meal, at my destination. Or, you can balance out, whatever works best for you. Just, different things to keep in mind. Always keep a flashlight. And sometimes, depending on how far off the beaten track I'm going, I'll actually bring my camping bin, because my camping bin contains rope, a knife. So even if I'm staying at a cabin or I'm camping in my car, I'm not necessarily camping, I still bring my camping gear, just because I like to be spontaneous. And, hey, that looks like a great swimming hole over there. Gosh, I wish I had, some rope to tie my float to, the bank, so that I don't have to, but I love having all of these extra little things, and my favorite little solo travel tip is that I bring a little piece of the Glowing Goddess with me everywhere I go. I have a couple of, I have solar lights that I like to put outside of, depending on, obviously you can't do it at a hotel, but if you're in a camping cabin or a tent, I have little twinkle lights that I love to travel with. I took a tip from Saline, and I travel now with incense, because I like to light some incense in the morning to kind of, just kind of ground myself, especially if I'm out in nature. Let's see, what else do I do? I have anything that just makes me feel happy and whimsical, and a little bit extra girly or sparkly. I like to bring along for the ride as well.
Oh, that's great. These are like also good. I mean, I think the glamping starts on the road trip. And one other plug for, and I will also say, as someone who's very glamping identified for a couple decades now, the Glowing Goddess Getaway is absolutely glamping. Like, you just show up with your bedroll, and it can be as fancy as you want it to be. And I bring a heavy duty double tall air mattress situation, because I like to be comfy. I've also brought a rolled up foam to put on top of it, because you can fit a lot in a car. But in terms of like bringing your own beverages on road trips, when you drive through the desert, frequently the water is gross. And so even if you buy iced tea from like, I mean, it's also just cost effective, right? To just bring your own iced tea brewed from home in a cooler with like ice that's not from gross water, and like your own water, like you're saving money, and it also doesn't taste not great. And frequently, I've noticed this on driving around the country, you can get ice for free. Like, if you bring your own cup, they'll let you have ice when you stop to go to the bathroom at a gas station. So it really works out well for me to have like what I need. Like I keep my stevia because I don't like, you know, the pink stuff, and that's all that a lot of places have, right? So how have you found in your solo road tripping during the pandemic and like kind of in this gray area of the pandemic, like how have you found that your feelings around safety and the protocols of like bathrooms on the side of the road?
Oh, that's a really great question. During the height of the pandemic, there were actually no bathrooms available. And so that was a thing. Because your chances of finding a bathroom were going to be best at road stops, or you know, the actual rest areas that are provided, you know, by some sort of government entity. And so I felt fairly comfortable with most rest stops because they are government managed. They have, you know, there's a certain level that they're expected to do their job at. And so that kind of became a go-to for me. It's not for everybody, but I actually bought like the little Chiwis off of Amazon. It's a little assistive tool that helps stream the pee so that perhaps you stand less of a chance of getting yourself wet if you are faced with peeing on the side of the road, which I'm not opposed to, you know, at all. But now it's gotten a little bit better. In my normal, so now that things are open, my normal go-tos for bathrooms are Starbucks. Starbucks has fantastically clean bathrooms. Typically Targets have really clean bathrooms. And actually, I'm glad that you asked, because I actually have a map that's available to anyone attending the Glowing Goddess Getaway, or, you know, people who decide to work with me through my travel agency. But my map takes you from Southern California all the way to Oregon, to the southern tip of Oregon. And it is marked with all the Starbucks that are conveniently located off the freeway, all the Chipotles, In and Out, Target, you know, some of those brands that we're comfortable and familiar with, as well as a couple of custom stops that, you know, we've added on over time. Because through the adventures, you know, we've stumbled across mom and pop places that were really fantastic. And ideally, I'd love to build out this map so that we are super focused on supporting community.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, of course, like we want to support small businesses, but it's hard to like make those choices on the road when like you're not sure about it. So it'd be, what a great resource already. And I mean, the Glowing Goddess Getaway is very California centric because that's where it started, and that's where cannabis was recreationally legal, or medicinally, I guess, when it really started. But anyway, whatever. We've got California, and it's in this COVID year, our 3 in-person getaways are in California, but 2022, we're going all over North America, right? So those, I can't wait for your maps to come out, and I can't wait for small businesses who live like on a high, or who are on a highway, getting in touch with you to get on those, like especially women-owned and minority-owned businesses. Like as a sisterhood, we love to support that. Oh, what a great resource! So people can get that from you through Glowing Goddess Getaway or working with you in your travel experience. But like, I mean, that's something as a solo road tripper, actually, it's really dangerous for me to like be looking stuff up while I'm driving, to be like, oh, where's the next Starbucks? But if I had a little printout, I'd be like, oh, it's exit whatever, and then just keep it moving. So it's almost like a safety thing too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that was part of why I did it, is because, you know, it's really hard, especially, you know, you cannot do the Google search while you're driving, you know, and sometimes, you know, all of a sudden you need that bathroom, you need that coffee, you need that thing, because there's no one to take over for you. You know, you just got to find a safe place to stop. You know, the last travel tip that I'll share is overnight stays. There's dispersed camping that's available throughout a lot of areas. And so if you are planning a trip and you want to avoid the cost of having to pay for some place to like camp in your car or set up a tent, do a Google search for dispersed camping. And there are some beautiful spots that are still maintained and even have restrooms. So that's a really great thing to look at. The other thing is Walmart parking lots allow you to park there at no charge, and you are allowed to stay there and sleep overnight. And then number three, of course, are rest areas. I believe that here in California, you're allowed to stay in a rest area up to 8 hours. But I would have to double check that. But, and again, everyone has different safety concerns and each area is different. So of course, always go with that inner gut, but those are also options for, free car camping.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yvonne, those are amazing tips. Thank you for helping folks explore the world a little safer. My last question for you is if you could give advice, or first of all, how old are you now?
I'm 42.
42, same. I didn't realize
That's so
we were
cool.
the exact same age. That's so exciting. And what's your sun, moon, and rising sign?
Oh, see, now that I don't know.
Oh, well, okay. When's your birthday?
March 12th.
March 12th. So you're a Pisces.
I am.
You're the best kind of Pisces too. Like you're sweet and connective and community making and service oriented and all of that. I love that. And we'll figure out your moon and rising at some point at a getaway. But the other question I have for you is what advice would you give your 19-year-old self?
I would tell myself to follow my heart, follow your heart, follow your heart, and let go of society's BS rules.
Mm.
It is not about what other people think about you. It's how you feel about yourself at the end of the day.
Mm.
Because I spent, and I'm still working through, letting go of what people think of me. And I think that if there's one thing that I hope and pray that I'm instilling in my children is that they are so amazingly beautiful and wonderful just as they are.
Mm.
All the good, all the bad. I wish that I had been able to be more authentic at 19.
Full same. Absolutely. I was just reminiscing with someone the other day about all these decisions I made in high school that were aesthetic, like my senior photos and things like that, that were not aligned with who I really am. And like, it was definitely about what other people wanted. And not even things that people told me, just things I thought I should do to impress other people. Such a boring and really stressful way to live. And it's the easiest thing to be is your real self. The hardest thing to be is what everybody else wants of you. But we're raised to do that, what everybody else wants of us, instead of just figuring out who we really are and forging our own path.
Exactly. Well said.
You're really doing it. You're really forging your own path and making your own way and doing, helping people connect to cannabis experiences. So if you're out there, if you think you want to be part of the Glowing Goddess Getaway, come. If you're having travel concerns, definitely hit Yvonne up. It's part of the deal. Like it's part of what she offers. And then also if you like have a dream cannabis getaway and time is precious to you, this is why you pay people to help you, because they can do it much faster than you can and have access to way more resources than you do. So, so Yvonne _ LCA travel on Instagram. Any other ways to connect with you? Do you have a website?
Yes, absolutely. I would love, if you have questions about the association, it is Cannabis Travel Association.org. So simple. And you can connect with us there for resources. And then, of course, it is Glowing Goddess Getaway on Instagram. And then you can also connect through Glowing Goddess Getaway to get to me. And it is my distinct pleasure to greet goddesses who have to travel to get to the getaway. So if you have questions about what it's like, what to pack, what to expect, how to get there, I'm your girl.
Yes. Oh, I love you so much, Yvonne. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me, Bevin. It's been such an honor. And I appreciate what you do and the love that you spread in this world. You're such a light. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yay.